Sports News, live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. "28 people have been killed in a suicide car bomb followed by an armed attack on Afghanistan's eastern Ghazni province. Medics at the Ghazni Provincial Hospital say 17 others are seriously wounded and the death toll could rise. Following the blast, the militants stormed the compound using assault rifle fire and rocket-propelled grenades. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack as of yet. 43 farm workers have been killed in a suspected Boko Haram attack in rice fields of the Kushobi village in northeastern Nigeria. The village chief says the assailants tied up the workers and slit their throats. Locals say 6 others have been seriously wounded. In Ethiopia, the leader of the rebellious Tigrayan forces say they will continue fighting the federal government. His statement comes hours after the government declared military operations in Tigray complete. Earlier, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the government forces had taken full control of Tigray's capital, Mekelle. The global number of COVID-19 infections has crossed 62 million with over 1.45 million deaths. Brazil has registered nearly 52,000 coronavirus cases and 587 new deaths over the last 24 hours. India's caseload is nearing 9.4 million with over 41,000 infections and 496 deaths overnight. Pakistan has registered over 2,800 cases and 43 fatalities overnight as the death toll nears 8,000. And in football, Borussia Dortmund have suffered a shock 2-1 loss to visitors Cologne in a Bundesliga clash. This is the first time Cologne have defeated Dortmund at home in 29 years. For news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. 28 people have been killed in a suicide car bomb followed by an armed attack in Afghanistan's eastern Ghazni province. Medics at the Ghazni Provincial Hospital say 17 others are seriously wounded and the death toll could rise. Following the blast, the militants stormed the compound using assault rifles, fire, and rocket-propelled grenades. Head of the Provincial Council said that the bomber targeted Afghan National Security Forces compound in Ghazni. He said the army commandos were based at the compound. No group has yet claimed the responsibility for the attack. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has unanimously adopted a resolution in support of the Kashmir cause. It was taken up at the 47th session of the OIC Council of Foreign Ministers in Niamey. More in this report. 57 countries of the OIC have categorically rejected India's illegal and unilateral actions in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The resolution adopted in Niamey told India to refrain from taking any steps to alter the demography of the region. It noted that Indian troops are committing crimes against humanity in the valley. The bloc reiterated the resolution of the Kashmir dispute was imperative for regional peace. The OIC also deplored India's state sponsorship of terrorism, which harms the people of Kashmir. The body urged the world community to review their engagements with India as it is disregarding international law. Kashmir has been under an inhumane curfew since India revoked its special status in August last year. Indian troops have killed hundreds of people and detained thousands to curb dissent since then. In Pakistan, 43 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, pushing the death toll to 7,985. The health ministry says 2,257 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The ministry says there are more than 47,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It mentions that out of over 395,000 countrywide cases, almost 340,000 people have recovered so far. The ministry says over 171,000 cases have been detected in the province of Sindh, while the Punjab has reported over 118,000 cases. In the capital, Islamabad, more than 29,000 have been detected so far. The global number of COVID-19 infections has crossed 62 million with over 1.45 million deaths. Brazil has registered nearly 52,000 coronavirus cases and 587 new deaths over the last 24 hours. More in this report.
The holiday season, coupled with the flu season, has sent the already aggressive spread of COVID-19 into overdrive. Latin America now accounts for a third of all deaths and infections of the world to date, while high mortality rates continue to kill more. The U.S. has now reported more than 100,000 infections and 1,000 deaths on average every day for the past 26 consecutive days. All public and private social gatherings have been banned in Los Angeles for 3 weeks from tomorrow under new restrictions.
Our numbers have increased to devastating levels, potentially for capacity at a lot of hospitals. And so the only way I know to keep individuals alive is frankly to hope that you don't get the disease in the first place. That is hands down the best way.
In Europe, record high deaths and infections are surging once again through most of the countries. Italy is on the ropes again, with hundreds dying and tens of thousands contracting the virus every day for the past month. But as the French government eased its restrictions, citing a slow rate of infections to encourage consumer activity, experts fear irresponsibility and carelessness might make matters devastatingly worse.
I hope people are going to be responsible. I hope we won't regret this lifting of the lockdown. The shopkeepers are making an effort, and now it is everyone's responsibility, up to everyone's civic duties.
In Asia, India is fearing another spike in new cases following the festival season and the holiday season. India's caseload is nearing 9.4 million with over 41,000 infections and 496 deaths overnight. Meanwhile, South Korea is considering tighter restrictions to clamp down on economic activities after last week saw the fastest spread of infections.
A wave of anti-lockdown and anti-vaccine protests is sweeping Europe. In the United Kingdom, more than 150 people were detained from central London. In a statement, the Metropolitan Police said the arrests were made for offences including breaching coronavirus regulations. They said some protesters also assaulted a police officer. Meanwhile, thousands converged on Germany's border with Poland to object to the coronavirus curbs. Several hundreds of people from the adjacent Polish town of Sublice joined in on the call from the Kurden movement. The group says coronavirus restrictions are endangering fundamental freedoms. In Nigeria, 43 farm workers have been killed in a suspected attack by Boko Haram militants in the northeastern Kashobi village. Kashobi is near the Maiduguri and the capital of the rest of Borno state. Authorities say the assailants tied up agricultural workers and stripped their throats. Village officials say 6 others sustained serious injuries, while 8 others were missing, presumed to have been kidnapped by the militants. Last month, Boko Haram fighters killed 22 farmers for working on their irrigation fields near Maiduguri. In Ethiopia, the leader of the rebellious Tigrayan forces say they will continue fighting the federal government. His statement comes hours after the government declared military operations in Tigray complete. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the government forces had taken full control of Tigray's capital, Mekelle. In a statement, he said the government will now restore normalcy to the restive region. In a tweet, Ahmed said the civilians were not targeted during the operation. He said police were searching for the leaders of the Tigray's People Liberation Front. Ahmed said that the police force will bring those leaders to the court of law. Hundreds of people are believed to have died, and some 43,000 have fled to Sudan over the 3 weeks of conflict. At least 3 people have been killed by flooding on the Italian island of Sardina. Regional Environment Councillor Gianni Lampis told reporters the situation in the BT town was particularly dramatic. Lampis said the city mayor has informed that some people are still missing. He said a red weather alert has been issued with more heavy rain expected to hit the whole of the island. Local media said authorities are in search of the missing people. In Australia, authorities have issued a total fire ban as parts of the country stifle through their hottest night of November. According to Rural Fire Service, dry weather conditions in New South Wales pose a severe fire danger. Temperature in Sydney surpassed 40 degrees Celsius, with New South Wales, South Australia and Northern Victoria crossing the 45-degree mark. The Met Office has predicted the heat wave to last for 5 to 6 days in parts of New South Wales and southeast Queensland. Australian energy market operators said the demand may exceed supply in New South Wales amid soaring temperatures. Australia has been experiencing hotter and longer summers every year. The United Nations Relief Agency for Palestine Refugees has warned that it is on the cliff's edge due to the lack of funding. The financial needs have been compounded by the pandemic and the United States' move of ending funds to end UNRWA. More in this report.
The United Nations Relief Agency for Palestine Refugees is at the brink of collapse due to the non-availability of required funds. UNRWA provides its services to about 5.3 million Palestinian refugees, but it is suffering from a stifling financial crisis since the United States has frozen all of its support for the agency since January. The U.S. claims that it is not satisfied with the way the agency works, which is being criticized by Israel. Speaking at a news conference, UNRWA's Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarani says the agency is on the cliff's edge due to the lack of funding.
If you go from one country to the other one, you will meet despair and distress. And I do believe, and this is a message I am conveying to the international community, there is no better investment than investing in UNRWA and in the human development of Palestinian refugees if you want to invest in stability in the region at a time the region is as volatile as it is.
He said this year UNRWA received the lowest level of contributions since 2012. Lazzarani says the pandemic has also affected the agency's response to refugees.
This is taking place at a time our 28,000 staff have been the front responder of COVID-19 and its impact, have been the front responder of a number of crises here in the region. At the time they have paid a high toll when it comes to the COVID, including through death. At the time the communities are also paying a very high toll when it comes to the impact of the pandemic.
Lazzarani urges the international community to step up its support immediately. He also announced a call for an international conference next year to talk about the future of UNRWA. The UNRWA's Commissioner General reiterates the agency's assurance of continuing to provide services to Palestinian refugees.
A sea of rolling clouds cascaded down the face of the Lushan Mountains in East China's Jiangxi province. They offered a stunning scene which mesmerized visitors and photography enthusiasts for several hours. More in this report.
The flowing clouds in China's Lushan Mountain pervaded the valleys and enveloped ridges, streaming down to the forest and red roof houses below, creating an amazing cloud waterfall landscape. In a number of scenic spots, layer upon layer of clouds stretched for miles, drawing shutterbugs, both professional and amateur. No one wants to miss out on the opportunity to capture this beautiful moment.
The sea of clouds, snowscape, and the yellow leaves in the golden autumn all make photography enjoyable here. Plus, breathing in the fresh air is also really great.
Visitors say the scene one captures is the lens is quite different from the one you see with your own eyes. They describe the view as beautiful as a fairyland. The Lushan Mountain, famous for its mighty peaks, roaring waterfalls, and mysterious cloud mists, was listed as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1996.
It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Proving that people are stronger than machines, athletes from over Russia took part in a competition in Crimea's Sevastopol. More about the men versus the machines contest in this report.
Living in a time when almost all of our daily lives and work depend on some kind of machines, men in Russia are determined to prove themselves stronger. A weight-carrying contest was held in Crimea to demonstrate athlete strength. To win, each man had to lift a car weighing 405 kilograms and carry it as far as they could. Next, they had to pull a truck, its gear in neutral, to a distance of 20 meters using a thick rope. And finally, they had to carry a giant rubber tire weighing 100 kilograms back to the start line.
I haven't stopped training for even a single day. For me, powerlifting is not just a way of life, it's my life. So I can't miss a training session. Competitions are an indicator of all the results achieved. So now I work at my best.
22 years old Dmitry Skosirsky from Omsk won the top prize. This year's contest was held without any cheering spectators as COVID-19 restrictions prevented gatherings of crowd.
The lack of spectators has a rather negative effect because I and many athletes are accustomed, like real gladiators, to show our best results with the emotions for the public. This is an energy boost. On the other hand, I see certain advantages in this because, as I said earlier, we must adapt to the conditions in which we perform.
Crimea recorded 57 new coronavirus infections, bringing the total to 3,867 active cases of infection.
In Iraq, a team of 50 members is practicing Japanese martial arts, ninja in deep mountains. Without ability of basic facility, they have aimed to participate in international competitions and become well known around the world. More about the ninjas in this report.
Dressed up in traditional Japanese martial arts ninja, a team of 50 members practices a mixture of acrobatic and combat techniques in Iraq. They use shouting, fire, and spears to boost their strength and performance.
We are the Soran Ninja team, and we established the team 3 months ago.
Despite lack of support and facilities, these athletes have to leap over many other obstacles.
The difference between training inside the hall and in nature is that in the hall there are only 4 walls and nothing happens within these 4 walls. Outside in nature it is better physically and mentally because you have to adapt to the climate. A ninja needs cold, hot and mild weather to develop the capacity to deal with any weather.
The team hopes to participate in international competitions and become well known around the world.
Thailand's famous beach resort Pattaya has kicked off the holiday season in the shadow of COVID-19 pandemic. Amidst the cultural show, street food and fireworks, the holiday spirit commences in full swing. More about the report.
Thailand is gradually opening up after fighting a severe battle with COVID-19. The country has a struggling tourism-reliant economy and the holiday season calls for some celebration. Pattaya was one of Thailand's worst infected areas by the pandemic back in April when foreign tourists were banned from visiting.
After Pattaya was in darkness for a long time, now we have begun to have lights from hotels and other tourist spots around the city. Our lives are being brought back. Pattaya is returning to life. This shows that tourism in Pattaya city and in Thailand is beginning to recover.
Restrictions were lifted in October when Thailand recorded its first 1,201 foreign tourists. Tourism Ministry requires all foreign tourists to travel on special 90-day visa that requires 2 weeks of quarantine. Thailand's entry restrictions have helped keep its coronavirus cases tally to less than 4,000.
Now that we've heard about vaccine, we are a bit delighted that a vaccine is coming. We are afraid of COVID-19 too. We want everything to go back to what it used to be. Because if the situation remains like this, we cannot survive.
The country plans to restart talks with China on a travel bubble to boost the economy, which the government predicts will shrink by 6% this year.
In Thailand, a British pianist plays concert for hundreds of monkeys in a historic site. More about the unique concert in this report.
On his tour in central Thailand, a British musician, Paul Barton, was mobbed by unruly audiences who tugged his hair, stole his music and climbed all over his piano. While Thailand's COVID-induced hiatus draws in very few visitors to feed hundreds of hungry wild monkeys, the Barton has become their rock star.
I like to play piano for animals that have had stressful lives, and it's possible that music can play a part in the rehabilitation process, especially elephants that have had working elephants. And I was wondering whether some of the monkeys that lived in Lopburi would also appreciate listening to soothing, calm classical music in the way that elephants have done in the past.
After elephants, the musician's latest audience, macaques, were instantly drawn to Barton's rendition of Green Slaves, Beethoven's For Elise, and Michael Nyman's Diary of Love.
Come together and not let the pandemic stop the macaques getting good, nutritious food. That we need to make an effort to make sure that they eat properly. And when they eat properly, they'll be calmer and not so aggressive towards the humans that live around this area.
The musician hopes to raise awareness of the monkeys' hunger while studying their behavioral responses to classical music.
Canada has blocked mass exports of prescription drugs to the United States. In a statement, Canada's health minister said the decision was taken to avoid medicine shortage at home. Patty Hajudi said the Canada's represented 2% of global drug sales and sourced 86% of its medicine globally. She emphasized the need for vigilance in maintaining the country's drug supplies. Companies also must provide the government with information about existing or potential shortages when requested. The Canadian measures went into effect just days before a United States importation prescription drugs rule. It comes in response to the outgoing President Donald Trump's efforts to allow imports from Canada to lower some drug prices in the United States. In football, Borussia Dortmund have suffered a shocking 2-1 loss to visitors Cologne in their Bundesliga clash. This was the first time Cologne beat Dortmund at home in 29 years. Elias Sikri scored a goal on either side of halftime to put the visitors 2-0 ahead. Thorgan Hazard did score one for Dortmund in the 74th minute, but Lucien Favre's side failed to find a late equalizer. In another fixture, Bayern Munich came from a goal behind to win 3-1 at Stuttgart. The hosts went in front of the 20th minute after Tanguy Kolblay beat charging keeper Manuel Neuer in the goal to score. In the English Premier League, Leeds United beat Everton 1-0 at the Goodison Park. Rafinha's first ever lead goal was enough to seal 3 points for the visitors. This is the first time since 2012 that Everton's boss, Carlos Ancelotti, has lost successive home fixtures. With this win, Leeds have moved to the 11th spot while Everton have slipped to the 6th. In another game, Manchester City thrashed Burnley 5-0 in a home fixture. Riyad Mahrez netted a hat-trick while Benjamin Mendy and Ferran Torres scored 1 goal each. Defending champions Liverpool were denied victory at Brighton. David Yoda opened the scoring for Liverpool in the 60th minute, but Pascal Gross's injuries penalty rescued a draw for Brighton. Meanwhile, in the Spanish La Liga, defending champions Real Madrid suffered another blow to their title defense as they were handed a 2-1 defeat by Alaves. A 5th-minute penalty by Lucius Perez put Alves in front of the Victor Laguardia's head struck Nacho's arms. Josie then slotted into an open goal to make the score line 2-0 in favor of Alves. Casemiro scored a consolation goal in the 8th minute. 6th minute, but take the home side failed to find an equalizer. Seventh-time Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton has secured the pole position for the Bahrain Grand Prix with a score lap. The Mercedes star finished ahead of teammate Valtteri Bottas, who completed a front-row lockout for the team. Hamilton lapped the 5.4-kilometer desert track back in almost 1.5 minutes, beating his Mercedes teammate by seconds. Max Verstappen took third place for Red Bull. It is the 98th minute of Pole's Hamilton's career and put him on the course to completing a century. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after the short break.